This is our third class. Remember, it's always about power and control, nothing but power and control. That's it. The awareness patterns we just talked about. So now we're going to get into the cycle, because there is a cycle of abuse. So cycle of abuse, there's tension building stage, there's violence stage, there's an apology stage, and then there's a calm stage. The tension building stage, obviously there's criticism, yelling, angry gestures, coercion. Does everybody know what coercion is? Somebody, pardon me?
Force.
Not really a force, but you kind of talk somebody into doing something they don't want to do. You kind of coerce them into,
Direction.
Yeah, you can't, direction, convince them into doing something that you might not want to do, okay? It's a little different than manipulation, but you could put it in the same family as manipulation. Persuasion, strong persuasion, yeah. And threats. Second stage is the violence, threats, pushing and shoving, throwing things, unwanted touch, and rape. And I know that works both ways, guys. I always point this out, and especially the younger guys, always laugh. Every day in our society, men are raped too. It's not just a woman. It's not just women that get raped. Men get raped too. Third stage, apology stages. There's always going to be an apology, and there's always going to be blaming, because nobody who's abusive or violent is ever going to take that blame. It's always going to be somebody else's fault. Promises to change, and gifts. There's always going to be love for you. I love you. Won't happen again. And a little bit of mind games going on. But let's go back up to the apology and the gifts. There will always be an apology. Always, always, always. And there'll always be a gift. Whether it's a card, or whether it's a dinner out, or they cook dinner, or lingerie, or going to the movie, or maybe she might, if she's the abuser, she might wash your car for you, fill your gas tank up with gas. There's always going to be a gift and an apology. The violent person, the abuser, knows they've done wrong. They've crossed that line. So they're going to have to do something in their power to regain that control. And the best way to regain the control is to bring in the gifts and the apologies, and I'll never do it again, because they need to get back in control. That's why that's always going to be there. Absolutely. Fourth stage is the calm stage. Experts say the incident is forgotten and there's no abuse is taking place at this time. Normally I don't, unless I'm reading it wrong, I don't go against the experts, but I've been abused in many, many ways, as you've heard of some of them, and I disagree with the first one. The incident is forgotten. It's never forgotten. It's always in the back of your mind. If anybody's ever been in an abusive situation, it's always in the back of your mind. Every move you make, you think, will this set that other person off? Will this make that other person angry? Am I okay to do this? You don't even have your own thoughts, because every move you make is going to be based on whether you think the other person's going to you're going to flare them up again. Does that make sense? Cool. But absolutely, there's no abuse taking place at the time. And then there's a wheel of violence. There's tension building, violence, apology, and calm. These are the four aspects that are going to always be there. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to go in that circle. You're not going to go, okay, this is the tension building stage now. It's the violence. Nope, nope, nope. You can't apologize yet. We haven't had the violence. It's not going to go that way. But those four aspects will always be there. Somebody might, I had an ex-husband one time that could be sitting watching TV and something just flares him up and he just jumps out of the chair and is violent for no apparent reason. But then, of course, then he's calm and he's apologetic. And so those will all take place, but it doesn't have to be in that circle. Does that make sense? You might have somebody it's calm, and then there's tension, then they apologize, then they go back to being violent. So it's going to jump all around. It doesn't necessarily go in that perfect little circle. You guys have got a much better printout than this in your book. I highly recommend that you look at it, and you can ask me any questions about it next week, but in your workbooks it's much better, more detailed, not detailed, clearer is what I'm trying to say. It's much clearer. What is cool about this is on the one side, it's violence, physical violence is taking place. On the other side, it's telling you what should be taking place, the non-violence. So you can compare, you can flip it back and forth. You can look at the one quadrant, and if it says it's violent, turn it over, and in that same quadrant, it'll tell you what type of behavior should be going on. So what keeps this cycle in motion? Well, 3 major things: love, hope, and fear. Love for your partner, obviously there were some good points when you first met. There were some good points. It wasn't always bad. Please promise me right now, if you ever get into a new relationship and you see signs of any type of abuse, I don't care how much you think you love this person, please run the other way. Love is not enough to stay together. Love alone is not enough to stay together. Please run as fast as you can in the other direction. And then there's hope. Hope that things will change. Obviously the relationship didn't start this way, it didn't begin like this. So you're hoping it'll go back. You're hoping that they will change. Nothing you do is going to change an abuser. If you are an abuser, nothing anyone else does is going to change you. You have to look at your own behavior. So you might as well not even go down that. It's just going to be painful hurt for you if you're trying to change somebody else. And then there's fear that threats will become a reality. They say that one of the top reasons that men stay in abusive relationships is why? Does anyone want to guess? Yeah, absolutely. Because they get threatened. If you leave me, you will never see your kids again. That's a pretty deep threat, isn't it? Pretty manipulative threat. Yeah, absolutely. The second highest one, the second one is, if you leave, I will kill myself. Ring a bell? If you leave, I will kill myself. I need to talk about this for just a second because I was there. I've lived this. And please, if someone tells you that, please don't say, well, I don't care, go ahead and do it. Here's the gun, or whatever you want to do. That's not the right way to approach it. But what I have learned the right way to approach it is, what I was taught, is to tell them, I wished you wouldn't. I wished you wouldn't. But that's not on me.
Sometimes that can turn bad too.
That's your choice. Hold on a second. That's your choice. That's not on me. That's your decision. And if you do it, I'm not going to take that guilt. Let them know that up front. I'm not going to take that guilt. That's on you. That's your choice. I wished you wouldn't, but that's your decision. And if they do it, please don't take that guilt on. This was a hard lesson for me to learn. My counselor worked with me and worked with me and worked with me on this because I had an ex-husband who would tell me that all the time. And so my counselor, he kept trying to tell me, you need to just do this. Just tell him kindly, if you do that, that's your choice. That's not on me, and I'm not going to take that burden. I'm not going to take that guilt. So he was pulled that one night, and that's what I told him. I said, no, I wished you wouldn't. You're a good person. We don't match, but you can be a good person. But if you kill yourself, I'm not going to take that guilt. That's your guilt, not my guilt. And he left. It wasn't 10 minutes later, Community Hospital called me and said, your husband, who actually was my ex-husband, your husband has been in a car accident. I'm telling you right now, guys, it took every single ounce of strength I had to say, I don't have a husband, and hung the phone up. Now, do you think I was mean? Yeah, but you know what? Some people might think it's mean, but he wasn't hurt that bad. He was okay. And it was a manipulative ploy is what it was. And he never, ever bothered me again. Ever did he bother me again. Because he knew I wasn't going to buy into his games. Now, he did commit suicide several years later. And I didn't take that guilt on. That was his choice. Those were his demons in his head. Absolutely. So I just want to let you know that. Please don't take that on. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do, I can tell you that. But it's well worth it. You have to look at things. It's your sanity, your respect for yourself. Are you going to allow somebody to manipulate you to the point where you're frustrated and your life sucks because you don't want someone else to do something wrong when it's their choice to begin with? Does that make sense? Because the minute you stay, the minute they threaten you and you stay, you might as well hold your hand up and go, all right, I'll be your victim. I'll do whatever you want me to do the rest of my life. Because they have total control over you. Total control over you. Absolutely. Without a doubt. When you're going through all this and when you're trying to figure things out, this whole class is teaching us it's about you. And I was so lost. I was so in so much pain inside, even through my marriages. And we'll get into that. I understand now why I picked the man I chose to come into my life. It's not about him. It's not about anybody else. It's not about their choices. It's about your choices. I can't control the choices that they make. I cannot control that, and I can't worry about that. That's on them, not on me. Does that make sense? Yes, I was sad. Yes, I wished he hadn't done it. But I also understand he had some demons that he couldn't deal with, and that's how he chose to deal with them. There was nothing I could do to prevent that. I had to get myself healthy. I had to worry and concentrate on me and getting my own self-respect, because at that time I had no self-respect. I did what anybody else wanted me to do to make them happy. And you cannot allow someone else's life to overshadow your own life, because they own you. Then they own you. The key is to find somebody that it works and you're intertwined. Not one person up here and one person down here, or one person controlling, one not controlling. The key is to be together, make decisions together, do things together, respect each other together. You know, I have people all the time tell me that they wish they could change their partner because they're so disrespectful. They yell at them all the time, or they'll do this, or they'll say things, or they'll be abusive. And you try and talk to them to change, and they're not going to change. Nothing you say is going to change them. My question to you is, if someone's treating you that way, why are you there? Because why do you not have more respect for yourself? Because if you're staying in a relationship where someone's treating you wrong all the time, bad, disrespectful, abusive, however you want to say it, why do you not think you deserve more? Why do you think that's all you deserve? Because love is not enough to stay together. You need to find somebody who's going to respect you, who's going to treat you like a man, who's going to treat you as an equal. Not put you down, not rip you up, not, make fun of you, tease you, lie to you, not trust you. Trust is a big thing. Why do victims stay? Hopefully you guys can see these. Well, they stay for many reasons. They stay for financial dependence, religious beliefs, isolation. We're going to find out support, culture, language differences. But these are the top ones. Peer pressure. In this country, peer pressure has a peer pressure to have a partner can be extreme in this. It's getting better. It's getting better. Years ago, when I first got divorced in '97, it was pretty bad. Anytime you'd go somewhere by yourself, they're like, what's the matter? You always felt like a fifth wheel, and people kind of talked about you or wondered why you never were with somebody. It's getting much better. You can go out to eat now. Nobody really thinks you're odd or weird. Being alone and being lonely are two huge different things. You can be in a crowd of people and be lonely. And being alone is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And you might be afraid of what your friends might think or society might think, so you're going to stay with somebody. How about low self-esteem? Especially if you've been abused. If you've grew up and were abused emotionally or verbally, you may feel like you're not lovable. Remember me telling you about me? At one point, a lot of my life, I didn't think I was capable of love, and I didn't think that I was capable of receiving or giving it. I'll put it that way, receiving or giving it. Even if you are in a unhappy relationship, you may stay because you think that you're never going to find someone better, or who else is going to want you, so you're going to stay in that relationship. That's not true, guys. Instead of thinking that, work on why you chose this person to come into your life. Confusion and denial. This is a big one. You may be confusing genuine love and controlling love, especially if you've grown up in an abusive and unsupportive family. Remember we talked about that last week? The abusive? You don't even know you're growing up in an abusive family until you get out into the world. And even as an adult, sometimes we don't want to, a lot of us don't want to look at it. We just think there's something wrong with us. We never look at the way we've been raised or what we were taught was correct. You might think it could be worse. Downplaying the abuse, it's a very common reaction, but it still doesn't make it right. It still doesn't make it right. How about fear? You may be afraid of what would happen if you did tell the truth. People might label you. People might think that you're a bad person. You might have all these different things come up. You might be embarrassed of what others are going to say or do to you. You might be afraid you're going to lose friendships over that. Or maybe just the fear of being alone, what you were saying. Maybe just the fear of being alone, you know? Sometimes a lot of people think they'd rather be in any relationship rather than being alone. So they're going to jump into a relationship just like that before they even get to know the person. Well, we already talked about this a little bit, the love and promises. You sincerely love your partner, which is not enough if you're in an abusive situation, even if you hate their behavior. And your partner's always going to promise to change. And we know that's not true. Once violence starts, it almost always gets worse and more often. Hope, you believe you can change your partner. We know that's a myth. That's totally false. So what about the effects of domestic violence? Well, everybody's affected by it, unfortunately. Victims, isolation from others. Remember that Stockholm syndrome we talked about last week? Where the abusers, yeah, this is what they do. Isolation from others, low self-esteem, depression, increased alcohol and drug use. And to that point, why do we use drugs and alcohol? Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been there, because you think the more you drink, the more drugs you take, the less you're going to be in pain. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah. It affects you more long term. And that short term, it does. And and it might help you just that little bit of high that you've got going on, or the drunk that you've got going on. But then when you come out of that, then you have more problems on top of that, because then you're upset and embarrassed, or whatever you want to put in there, because you were doing the drugs and the drinking to begin with. So it just adds to the guilt, adds to the low self-esteem, adds to the constant put down of yourself. Absolutely. Emotional problems, illnesses, pain and injury, permanent physical damage, and hopefully not, but it could be death. Children go through a lot. Children encounter emotional problems, low self-esteem, illnesses, increased fear and anxiety and anger, acting out in school. Here's your bullies. Here's your starting of your bullies, because the kids have got to release it somehow, and they don't know how to handle it either. Running away, injuries and death, and again, learning and repeating that abusive behavior, that that's the right way to live, when in fact it is not. So they're already grown up. You've already got young kids that have got all these low self-esteem and emotional problems, and they don't know how to handle it. The batterers are affected also. They have increased violent behavior, increased belief that the power and control are achieved by that violence, increased contact with the law, increased emotional problems, because they're going through a lot too. An abuser, a violent person's got a lot going on. Why do you think they're violent? They're not looking at things that have happened in their life. Those walls are being built and they don't know how to bring them down or how to handle it. Decreased self-esteem. And they also have the increased alcohol and drug use instead of dealing with it. So wouldn't it be better to deal with it, to figure out what's causing the pain, so that you can finally say, oh my God, that's what's causing the pain. I don't want it anymore, and throw it away. Now, it's not going to be that easy. We all know that. It's not going to be that easy. But if you keep digging, it sure is worth it. It sure is worth it. Society takes a huge hit, bigger than most people think. You know, we have an increase in crime, increase in legal, police, medical, prison, and counseling costs, ongoing belief in that myth of women's inequality to man, increase in social services. Also, Center for Disease Control estimates an annual direct health care cost associated with domestic violence to be $4.1 billion a year. That's a lot of money. And an additional, on top of that, an additional $1.8 billion in productive losses. Does everybody know what I mean when I say productive losses? People can't go to work because can't get their pay, can't get their wages. And they're saying this is a conservative estimation. That's pretty sad, isn't it? So hopefully we get more classes like this that are out there that can teach children to grow up and start living healthier lives, where they choose healthier, they respect themselves more, they get into relationships where they can partner instead of somebody dominating, one or the other dominating, and hopefully there'll be more funding. This funding will come to prevent that instead of after the fact, is what I'm hoping. But we do have to make the abusers accountable for their actions. If there are no consequences for the violence, such as getting arrested or losing a relationship, then that behavior becomes reinforced. Many people try to talk the victims out of filing charges. They truly do. Well, go back and try it again. You know, it can be for anything. It could be, a lot of it is religion, maybe, your faith doesn't believe in divorces, or culture. or just, you know, they like both people. You know, maybe that isn't really what's going on. Why don't you try and talk about it and do it again? This does not help. This only reinforces the actions. If I come to you, or if you come to me, let's do it that way, and you tell me that you're being abused, and I'm like, you know what, I'm sure they didn't mean it, go on back and talk to them. Work it out. Go work it out. How many people have ever heard this saying, you lay your bed, now lie in it? You've made your bed, now lie in it. Yeah. Is all that is saying is to the victim, I don't care about you, go take the abuse. And it's all it's telling the abuser is, we don't care about him or her, go ahead and abuse him. We don't care. When someone comes to you, male or female, and tells you, I'm being abused, what they want to be validated that they're okay. What they want to hear is, I'm so sorry. Do you want to talk about it? I'm so sorry that's happening. What can I do to help? They don't want to be judged. They don't want to be told what they're supposed to do. They don't want to be shunned. They don't want to be laughed at. I have a sister that I've become very close to since my abuse, since I came out with my abuse. And she's very down to earth. And I used to go, when I was dealing with all this, I used to go to her house, and she knew I was having a bad day. And I would pull up, and she'd greet me, she'd meet me, and she'd take my hand, and we'd walk up on her porch, and we'd sit on the swing, and she'd say hello, but nothing else. And she would just let me cry like a baby on her shoulder to get all that emotion out, just to get that out. And all she would do is pat my back and just say, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay. You don't have to cure everything. You don't have to know right now what you're gonna do. It's gonna be okay. I loved her for that. She didn't judge, she didn't ask, she didn't tell me what I'm supposed to be doing. She just told me the first time in my life I truly felt loved. I was gonna be okay, I'm a good person. Doesn't matter what's happened or what I've done in my past. That's all they want. That's all they want. Then afterwards, then she'd say, okay, you want something to drink, or, you know, what do you want? You want to talk about it? You know, after I got all that out, and we'd sit there and talk for a while. And even in our talking, she wouldn't judge. Well, what do you think about that? Well, why do you think you feel that way? She really has helped me a lot with my healing. That's what somebody who comes forward and says. How many in here have young children? Okay. And if I've said this before, just let me know and I won't say it again, but I've got to say this. And this is going to be hard for you to hear, I know. I've had many, many guys argue with me until they really think about it. If you have a child that comes to you and says, I'm being abused or I've been abused, as a human, your first reaction is going to get revenge. That's the last thing you need to do. That is the last thing you need to do, and I'm going to tell you why. Because your child's going to see that. One, they're going to think they made dad mad. They're going to think that they made dad violent. They're going to take that guilt on. Two, if you should get in trouble and go to jail, you're not even there to help them through anything. What you need to think about is their well-being. They want the same thing. What they want dad to do is to put your arms around you and to say, I love you. It's going to be okay. It is not your fault. We'll get through this. We'll get through this. That's what they want you to do. And I know that's going to be extremely hard. I hope none of you ever have to go there. But please take me gospel on that. That's what they want. Because if they see you angry, they will never come and ask you or ask you for help again. Is all they're going to say is, oh my gosh, I made dad mad. And I don't want to see him that angry. They're going to take that on inside. So when they're around, please, please don't let them see that anger. Let them know that they're loved and that you're going to be right there with them to get it through. Okay? Influence of violence. This is what men may believe. This is what counselors and police and clergy hear the most. Men may believe they have the right to control their female partners in any way necessary. The masculinity is physical aggressiveness, that they might possess their partners. They should demand intimacy. And this bottom one is a biggie. They may lose respect if they are attentive and supportive towards their girlfriends. They don't consider that masculine. I've read, and I've been told this happens a lot in junior high. When people start to get into sports. You might have a kid, male or female, we'll go with a male because it's more prominent with men, with boys, that goes into sports, and he's over here talking to his girlfriend, and his teammates are hearing him. He's like, yeah, okay, sure, I can do that. Yeah, I'll pick that up for you. Yeah, we can be there by then. She's kind of giving him, this is what's going to happen tonight. Can you do this, this, and this? And he's like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with that. So he gets done talking to her. What's his teammates do? Pardon me? Yeah, start picking at him, start making fun of him, start humiliating him. Really? You're going to let her push you around like that? Really? Aren't you even going to stand up and be a man? Right. Peer pressure is horrible, isn't it? So he's going to do something. He might not be violent at first, but he's going to do something to stand his ground with his buddies. And then it might escalate from there, a little bit at a time. But in order to stand his ground and be with his buddies, he's going to do whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And that's not that different with adults, but especially with teens. So yeah, he's going to do that, and then it's going to escalate from there. Escalate, because he doesn't want to lose face with his teammates or his buddies. Every day, yeah, you do. You do. You have to be strong enough to respect yourself enough to not have to have anybody else's approval. It's nice, but you don't have to have anybody else's approval. I know who I am. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have to shove my ideas or my opinions down your throat. I can speak, I can tell you how I feel, but if you don't like it, then okay. If you like it, that's great. And sometimes you might say something and stand your ground and give me your point of view, and I might say, oh, I didn't think about that. And you might sway my mind. Sometimes you're not going to, and that's okay. You don't have to, because you know who you are, and you respect who you are. People who constantly have to shove their opinions down someone else's throat, always has to be right, always has to be the one that wins, they've got issues they need to deal with, some major issues they need to deal with. Grow up respecting themselves? Yeah, absolutely. Women may believe that they are responsible for solving problems in their relationship, that their husband, boyfriend's jealousy, possessiveness, even physical abuse is romantic. And that's a real thin line, because in my opinion, I think that not all women, I'm not going to speak for all women, but I think that there's a huge majority of women out there who still like to know that the man is the one that is the protector. He is the one that is the head of the household. He is, the arms around you. You're safe. But that's a real thin line for both the men and women to look at, because in doing that, because he is more aggressive, he has more testosterone. So in doing that, that's a real thin line. And you have to work at that. You have to talk about that. When does that become you're protecting me, or when does that become you're controlling me and becoming abusive? That's a thin line. And only the two of you can talk about that. You have to get input from both parties there and listen to each other. Here we go. Abuse is normal because others they know are also being abused. You are who you run with. You're judged by who you run with. I had somebody in class go, well, I run with guys and I don't do anything that they do. I don't care. You're still judged. You're judged by who you run with. Is it right? Probably not. But that's the way our society is. You are who you run with. And if everybody you run with is being abusive and disrespectful, then you're going to be that way too, because you want to save face with that group. You want to be a part of that group. So you're going to do whatever it takes to be a part of that group. Be your own person. Be strong enough to say, I don't need that anymore. I don't want to be that way anymore. I respect myself much more than to do something like that.
Takes us back to who am I?
Who am I? Exactly. It takes you right back to who am I. Absolutely. They don't deserve any better, and there's no one to ask for help. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we talk about manipulation, but I can tell you that is very true. I felt the same way. I got into the relationships that I got into because I didn't think I deserved any better. I purposely put myself in an abusive relationship because I thought that's all I could have. People who are abusive use excuses all the time to justify their the hurtful behavior. And people who hear them start doubting that, whether their concerns about that relationship are valid. They might put up with abuse, and that abuse is going to escalate. And I can tell you that's true. I had 3 abusive marriages, and my one husband might, push me or shove me at one time. I'm like, hey, that wasn't very nice, And he's like, oh my God, you're going to get all crazy about that? I can't believe it. How ridiculous. Blaming me. Why are you even making this an issue? I'm like, well, maybe I'm making too big, my mind, maybe I am making too big of an issue. Maybe I am. Maybe he really didn't mean it as like I'm thinking he meant it. So then I back off, and then it gets a little bit worse. And then I say something again. Well, the time he smashed my head up against the car window, that was my fault, because I was complaining that he was trying to push me out the car and he slammed the door shut. But if I just sat there and let him beat me up, then nothing would have happened. That was his defense. If you would have just took it, then that would have been okay. Doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. So you think, okay, if I just shut up, it won't get any worse. And you allow yourself to put up with more abuse, and you allow yourself to put up with more abuse just to save peace. It's not worth your life. It's not worth it. Love is not enough. Love is not enough. And you know, you got to ask yourself this question. And it took me years to finally ask this question. I keep saying love is not enough, and that's what I finally was telling myself. But then I started thinking about it. If that other person who says they love me, truly love me, would they treat me that way? Not at all. Not at all. And I know that most abusers, most violent people have, like I said, those walls, they've been through things in life. They've been the victim at one time, or they wouldn't be shutting down and being violent. They've got issues they have not dealt with in life. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't justify it. It's just a reality. But they need to do that, work on that on their own, not on you. Here are the most common excuses that police, medics, hospital, clergy, counselors hear. It's not abuse. I was having a bad day. And when I say these, think of how many of these you have used or you have heard, because they're pretty common. It wasn't abuse. I was having a bad day. Jealousy is a normal part of any relationship. You got me so upset and angry. You got me upset. There it is again. It's your fault that I'm upset. It just happened once. It won't happen again. You deserved it. I was high or drunk. Drugs made me do it. I had a bad childhood. I deserve unconditional love and support. I should be more important than your friends and family. My needs are more important than yours, and I didn't mean to hurt you. Let me go back to that. I should be more important than your friends and family. I have people tell me all the time, well, I don't know how to handle her family, or I don't know how to handle his family. I love them, my in-laws, but they're over all the time. They're over there all the time. And I don't mind most of the time, but we never have time together. Well, here's a really easy solution for that. Put a plant outside, turn on a porch light, I don't know, some type of a clue that everybody knows what it is. When you see that plant hanging on the porch, don't come in. That's our time together. We need to nurture our relationship. Any other time, you're welcome. But when you see that plant, that's our alone time. We don't want anybody over. Now, you can't leave it out 365 days a year. You know, that's going to cause trouble too. But it's a really good thing to do. And I've had people say, well, I've tried something like that, and they just come over anyway, and we get in arguments. Just bring it back to, this is what we need. Why can't you respect that? Bring it back to the respect issue. This is what we need. Why can't you respect that? And I understand these aren't going to be easy, and it's not going to be black and white, and yes, this is going to happen, and a switch is going to flip, and everything's going to be okay, because that's not the way it is. You're going to have to do a lot of talking. You're going to have to do a lot of soul searching, finding out who you are, even with your significant others. If you choose to change, I guarantee you, if you choose to change, when you get out of here and talk to them, and please talk to them, communication's the key. You know, I really want to change. I want to respect myself more. I don't want to go back to jail. I don't want to go back to prison. I don't want to make these unhealthy choices anymore. Can you help me? Can you respect that? They're going to do everything in their power once you start making those positive changes to bring you back to the way you were. Everything they possibly can to pull you back, because they don't understand, and it's unfamiliar territory to them. They want the person back that they could control, that they could manipulate, that they knew how to handle. So you might have to ask 2 or 3 times, I don't understand why you're not, you know, I told you I want to make better choices. And after you talk 3 or 4 times and they know you're serious and they're still disrespecting you, you might have a choice to make, because they're speaking loud and clear. Actions speak a lot louder than words. All those are signs of unhealthy relationship, but there is no excuse for abuse. Excuses should never, ever, ever be tolerated. Abuse is always a choice. Some people will choose respect, others are going to choose abuse. Some people are going to say, this is really great and I want to do it. And no matter what it takes, no matter how painful it is, I'm going to look at my past, I'm going to look at my walls, I'm going to start chiseling and breaking down my walls one at a time. Some people are going to say, forget it, that's just way too hard. I'm not going to go on that journey, no way. And that's okay. But if you choose to continue to be violent or be in an abusive relationship, that's on you. You can never ever complain about it again because you're choosing to be there. Nobody's forcing you to be there, and now you know you don't have to. There's another way. So that's going to be on you. If you recognize abuse in yourself, please seek help. Find somebody to talk to. Abusers make choices all the time. Violent people make choices all the time. We all make choices every day. And it's no different for them. They make choices all the time. And they know when they do something illegal, abuse, or whatever it is, that they could get caught. They know that they might go to jail. That's a right they give up. Nobody does anything to you. You choose to do what you do. And you're saying, all right, if I get caught, then that's on me. Nobody else is doing anything to you. Many of us have had unhappy childhood experiences. Some of us were abused or mistreated by our parents. Others watched our fathers or mothers abuse the other. But some of us didn't experience any physical abuse, but were verbally abused. It's just as bad. It's equally as bad. If you're constantly growing up thinking that, remember I told you, thinking that you're ugly, fat, stupid, nobody wants you, that plays on you. You believe it. You believe it 100%. What about the child who grows up and receives very little to no emotional support? No emotional support out there at all. What do you think happens to them? Yeah. Confused? Lost? Absolutely. Absolutely. How can he even process anything? Absolutely. How can you process anything? Because you have no barrier. You have no barometer to measure it by, right? Absolutely. But even if you had a terrible childhood, it's extremely important that you do not blame your past for your actions today. Holding on to those painful childhood and adult experiences and bringing them into other relationships only aggravated an unhealed wound. You have to look at the wound and find out where that wound is coming from. Regardless of how or where you learned about violence, you've got to address your current relationship without your past and start from there. The good thing is, whatever you learned about violence or abuse, whatever you learned, you can unlearn. So if you work at it, you can unlearn your patterns of violence and abuse. You cannot change the past, only the hold it has on you. That's all you can change. You're not going to change the past, it's back there. Nothing you do is going to change it. But don't let your past dictate who you're going to be in the future. Please don't do that. Please don't let your past dictate. Start right now, right today. This is your past. I know you're going to court and all that, but that's your past. Let it finish, deal with it, then move forward. Don't ever think of it again. Just move forward. It's always about power and control over another. Please don't get sucked up into someone else's drama. The minute you get sucked into someone else's drama, you become their victim. You become their victim. Before we go here, let's look at these stats. 50% of all homeless women and children are fleeing domestic violence. 50% of all homeless women and children are fleeing domestic violence. Women or men who leave their batterers are at a 75% greater risk of being killed by that batterer than the victims who stay. A victim's going to leave 7 times. It seems like the 7th time is the magical number. They're going to leave 6 times and come back, go for whatever reasons. You know, they couldn't make it on their own, they couldn't find a job, the kids were screaming for dad or mom, or the clergy asked them to, try it one more time, the parents, family, whatever the case may be. They go back 6 times. That 7th time seems to be the magic number and they'll stay away. But what is wrong with that? What happens every time a victim goes back? It does. It gets worse. It gets a lot worse. Because the abuser has to up the ante, right? He has to make it more violent, to make it more fearful, to leave again. So every time they go back, that abuse and that violence gets worse. The FBI estimates that almost 1/3 of all women murdered in this country are victims of domestic violence. Even so, with that, the average sentence of murder for a man who kills his partner, and this is across the country, this is not just Indiana, is 2 to 6 years in prison, the average sentence. The average prison sentence for a woman who kills her partner is 15 years. Can anybody tell me why the big difference?
Because it's more men kill women.
No, you got it, exactly.
Meditated.
It's premeditated. Because a lot of times they'll go in with all this documentation, look what he's done, look what he's done, look what he's done, this, and this, everything, and the judge will, you know, well, if you've got all that and you're going after him, then that's what they say, it's premeditated. Thought that was an interesting fact. The males in the United States account for the majority of children who are abused, neglected, and murdered. Statistically, girls are sexually, that's the only number that's higher. Other than that, the males in the United States account for the majority of children abused, neglected, and murdered. The males in the United States account for the bulk of children in foster care and juvenile institutions. 70 to 75% of student suspensions, expulsion, grade failures, special education referrals, school violence casualties, and all other assault victims. Pretty sad, isn't it? It's pretty sad. So we need to do something, hopefully. Maybe that's why some of you made the choices you made, because maybe that's why you're here today. Maybe you're going to learn something to go out and start helping these young kids on the street, because they need help, definitely need help. Why do you think we have so many kids on the street acting like, I don't know the proper term, the updated term, hoodlums, you know? Huh? Hooligans. Acting like hooligans, got the guns out, can shoot anybody, and they really don't care. You know, they're out there, all this violence that's going on. That's because we don't have men out there saying, that's not what it is to be a man. That's not what it is to be a man. This is what it means to be a man. Why do you think we have so many young girls out there looking like hoochie mamas and cussing like a drunken sailor? That's because we don't have women out there saying, that's not what it's like to be a lady. That's not what it's like to be a woman. This is what it's like to be a woman or a lady. They need guidance, and maybe some of you are going to do that. That would be really cool. We also have to look at this toughening of boys, the male image, because it's, as we learn, it starts early from birth. We start numbing the males down from birth. And as you go through life, it numbs more and more and more. And if you're already lost, if you're already struggling on your own, if you already have no emotional support, or many of those other things we've already talked about, that makes it pretty difficult to figure out where you're at, right? How many of you growing up heard these things? Be tough, be strong, be cool, just deny the pain, don't flinch, show no fear, don't back down, don't be a baby, big boys don't cry, keep your cool, take it like a man, chill. Yeah, probably everyone in here has heard those, right? And that's not a bad thing, because you need to have that defense mechanism. You know, you need to stand and fight, protect, right? But we need to start bringing in the other side. There's not enough, I'm not saying there's not any, there's not enough families out there who are teaching young children, young boys from birth, that other, that creative, that loving, that peaceful, nurturing side, the father side, the responsible, loving husband or boyfriend side. So as all you know are those tough, aggressive things. So when you meet a girl and you really don't have a lot of guidance or someone to go to talk to that's been in a healthy relationship, and you start feeling all these feelings, the only way you've truly learned to connect is through that aggressive way. So it's a really confusing time in guys' lives. It really is. So we need to start teaching young children both sides. That doesn't mean, I'm not saying that every boy has to become like a girl and cry about every little thing, you know, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that you can do both, parallel. Just allow them and teach them there are two sides. There are two sides. It's not just this one side over here, this aggressive side that you're made of. Absolutely. I don't know if this is happening to anybody in this room, but I got to tell you what I went through. I call it dying to be me, because for over 20 years, closer to 25 years, I went through life with this confusion. I talked about that little girl inside last week, remember? With this confusion going on inside of me, knowing that who I was portraying wasn't who I wanted to be. I was so lost and confused, and I hated myself. I was depressed, low self-esteem. I would look at other people and get personality traits from other people because that's who I thought I had to be. And I realized after I went through a lot of my therapy, I realized that my entire life, that little girl was crying because she was dying to be Lucia instead of all these other personas that I was taking on. I thought I had to be this tough Wonder Woman. You know, I had these imaginary cuffs on my wrist. You know, ting, ting, ting. Nothing was going to penetrate me. I went 25 years, guys. I never cried in public. 25 years, I never let anybody know they hurt me. If you hurt me, I was out of your life. That's how cold and hard my walls were, because I wasn't going to allow anybody to hurt me again. It's hard to live that way. So I don't know. I know that we all go through some of that. I don't know at what level you guys are going through that. Lack of respect for yourself puts you in that a lot because you're lost. You're trying to figure out who you are and you don't even know how to respect yourself. And I'm speaking from me, personal experience. Please don't continue to go through that like a fish out of water almost. And you just go day to day trying to figure out who you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be, or you go over and make these people happy. You go over there and make these people happy. And never think, what's going to make me happy? Who am I? What am I want? And what do I want in life? What's my journey? Don't be afraid to tap into that, because you're pretty cool. You're a pretty cool person. I can tell you that right now. Once you tap in, you're going to find out that you're a pretty cool person. But have the courage to forgive yourself. Have the courage to tap into that and to figure out your own story, who you are, dying to be you. Figure out who you are. Remember this, until you make peace with who you are, you will never be content with what you have, ever. And I can attest to that. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. So, now we're going to look at what does an unhealthy relationship look like. Well, these things should never be in a relationship. Now, I'm talking about big time. You know, there are times we're human, just like I told you that story about when I slapped that guy last week, you know. So we're human, we're going to fall back. But overall, the majority of the relationship should not have this in it. And you should catch yourself immediately. And as you do that, you're going to get better and better, and it'll be less and less. Looking down on your partner, yelling, shoving, controlling, and manipulating. Ignoring your partner's thoughts or feelings. Being embarrassed in front of others. Told what you can and cannot wear. Made to be afraid of your partner. If you're afraid of your partner, if you're afraid to tell your partner, then you need to look at that relationship. Your significant other should be the one person that you can tell anything to. Your dreams, your fears, your skepticism, whatever you want to call it. Your goals, anything. They should be the one person that you can go to and not made fun of. You know, you might say, hey, I know I don't know, an example. I know we're struggling financially, but I really want to go back and get a degree. I haven't got my degree yet and I really want to go back to school. Do you think we can fit it in the budget? Now, they might laugh and say, yeah, right, yeah, nice try. But if you look at them and say, no, I'm really serious. Is there a way we can do this? They should work with you. You should sit down and work out a plan and see if it works. Well, you might not be able to do this semester, but maybe if we do this, this, and this, maybe we can manage this. They shouldn't laugh at you is what I'm saying. They should be there to understand, feel, and support you. And you them. Make sense? Yeah, thanks. I didn't even know what a healthy relationship looked like till I was in my late 40s. I hope you guys are all a lot younger than me, so I hope that you learn this and you do something about your healthy relationships. Here's some statistics. 43% of women, 26% of men in multiracial, non-Hispanic households suffer partner violence. 39% of women, 18.6% of men in American Indian, Alaska Native households suffer partner violence. 26.8% women and 15.5% men in white non-Hispanic households suffer partner violence. 29.2% women, 23.3% men in black non-Hispanic households suffer partner violence. 20.5% women and 15.5% men in Hispanic households suffer partner violence. It is across the board. Anyone can be violent. They say statistically, approximately 90% of domestic violence, the male is the abuser, the aggressor. Here's what should not be in here's an unhealthy relationship. We just went through those, didn't we? Okay. We know now that battering and abuse is not caused by illness. Less than 5% of the total population has an illness that causes them to be violent. It's not caused by genetics, alcohol, out of control behavior, stress, anger, and we're certainly not the victim's behavior. We also know that 50% of the men or women who abused were either abused as a child or saw one of their parents be abused. So it's taught. It's proven over and over again how much it's taught. We've also learned that it's taught early on through observation, through TV, through peer pressure, so it's taught everywhere, not just in the homes. So we're going to go to Maslow. How many people have ever heard of Maslow? Pardon me? Hierarchy. Maslow's hierarchy of need. Well, you know, for a long time, experts have been trying to figure out what makes people click and what makes people motivated and what makes them function. What do you say, function? So Maslow, I think it was 1926, around there, 26, 27, 28, somewhere around in there. He goes to a conference and he's like, hey, I got it. I know what makes people tick. I know what it is. I know what motivates them. I know what's going on. And he set this up there, and to this day, the experts are like, yeah, he was pretty right on. You know, he was pretty right on. This doesn't mean that this is exactly, and you guys can't read, it doesn't mean this is exactly how it's going to be. What it's saying is, these things for the most part have to be fulfilled. Now as you go up the ladder, less than, you know, you don't have to have all of it, okay? So the bottom line down here, I'm going to screw up by doing this, aren't I? The bottom line down here is your psychological needs. This actually says, sorry guys, breathing, food, water, sex, and sleep. You have to have air to live. You have to have food to live. You have to have sleep to live. You have to have water to live, right? Or you're not going to survive. This sex is not the intimate sex. This sex is to keep the human race alive. Yeah, if we don't do that, then our race is going to die out, right? So those we have to have those. The next one up is called safety and comfort needs, and you've got this in your books too if you want to follow along. Safety and comfort needs. People want and hope for predictability, an orderly world where there's fairness. The violence is under control. There's a little bit of security. Personal security, financial security, health and well-being, safety, and you guys have got that. So that's the next level. You kind of have to have some of that before you jump up to the third level is the love and belonging needs. That's emotional-based relationships. Humans need to belong. They need to be accepted by any means. There's very, very few people who can be eccentrics to go out on their own and not have communication with anybody else. For the most part, humans have to interact. We have to belong. We have to be accepted. And it doesn't matter how. It could be by social groups, it could be by clubs, some type of an office culture, religious groups, gangs, sports, a sports group to belong to, even a family member. It still gives you somebody to connect to, somebody to talk to, even a mentor. If you don't have anybody else, you might even have just a mentor or a close friend. You still have somebody to connect to. We all need to be loved and to give love, both physically and non-physically. This is friendship, intimacy, family, and religion. And I always like to stop here because I've had several guys say, well, I don't know what happens to me. Because when I'm incarcerated, I get very, very close to my religion. Very, very close. And I feel so good, and I make all these promises. Then when I get out, I lose my religion. You don't lose your religion. Because while you're incarcerated, you have this. You have air and food and water and a place to sleep, right? And you have a little bit of security. It's probably not 100%, but you have security here. You know you're not going to be harmed. You know that you're going to get medical. You know that you've got some things that you can count on. Up here, so while you're incarcerated, you go right up here. So you have all the time you need to think about your religion. But guess what? When you get released, you're knocked right back down here. So if you're worrying about where your next meal is going to come from, where you're going to sleep at night, yeah, that's going to take priority over the religion. Does that make sense? So you didn't lose it. It is still there. It just lost a little bit of priority in the line of survival. Does that make sense? So don't think you've lost it, because you haven't lost it. So then the next one up is the self-esteem, confidence, achievement. Everybody needs to be respected and have self-esteem and self-confidence. We all need to have a feeling of usefulness, every one of us. It gives us a sense of value, that we have a worth in this world. We need to be recognized. If we don't have that, if we don't have that sense of contribution to society, then what might we go through? What might happen to us? Anybody want to guess? If you don't have a sense of accomplishment, if you don't feel like you belong to somebody or something or anything, if you don't have that self-esteem, then what's going to happen? Pardon me? You might kill yourself, absolutely. Turn to drugs, absolutely. Beat yourself up a lot, absolutely. Low self-esteem, you might go into depression, a deep depression, absolutely. How about feeling weak or helpless, and you just beat up on yourself more and more and more? Or how about an inferiority complex, where if you don't belong to anybody or anything, then you think everybody's out to get you, and you can really expand on that a lot. Yeah. Very vulnerable. Yeah, absolutely. So this one gives us that recognition and status that we have to have, that attention, the fame. Like I said, even with your family, we just need that from somewhere. And then the top one is what they call self-actualization needs. What one person can be, what a man can be, our fullest potential, and realizing that potential. And some people, some experts I have read even take this top one off, because this top one, it's talking about, I've accomplished everything I've ever wanted to do. I have met every dream I've ever dreamt of. I have no worries. I have basically no responsibility. My life is great. Everything in my life that I need is met. So I think I'll just take money out of the bank and go to Spain and paint for 6 months and then come back. I have no worries in the world. That doesn't mean financial. There's a big difference. Financial doesn't give you inner peace. Financial doesn't give you that, I've accomplished what I am. I know who I am. I know what kind of a man I am. And there's some good examples out there. Michael Jackson, all the money in the world. Who's the last, what's his name? Robin Williams. Everybody was shocked, right? Had all the money in the world. What more could these people want, is what a lot of people think. They've got everything in the world. They don't. They don't, pardon me? Yeah. Yeah, they don't. They don't know who they are. Right, they're lost. Absolutely. So that's what, and I think I still have, yeah, here it is. This is good. And this is so true for a lot of people that are going through life. We never know the path that somebody else has taken. So just have an open heart, open mind when you meet people. Robin Williams, all it takes is a beautiful fake smile to hide an injured soul, and they will never notice how broken you really are. All it takes is a beautiful fake smile to hide an injured soul, and they will never notice how broken you really are. Hits home, doesn't it? It did for me. I mean, that was my life for many, many years. I was screaming on the inside. Absolutely. Absolutely. Poker face, yes. So that's what that's about. Now, if I can, without messing things up too much, I've got this I want to share with you. Okay, I'm going to do my own thing here. Now, when I do this, I took a little class on this, but when I do this, I don't want you to think I'm ditching the government, because I'm not. This is just another piece of the puzzle to feel the way we feel, okay? So, you've got a pyramid here. Do what? These are the law and policy makers. And these are the people who maintain the laws and enforce. And then these are the people who obey the laws. Usually no questions. Usually we do it. That's an S. And they conform. Okay. These people, lawmakers, what do you think they have the power over? Yeah. Including wages, what we make, right? They also have the power to isolate, label, remove, imprison, deport, and kill. Okay? So, these people in the middle, what do you think their biggest fear is? The people who maintain the laws. What do you think it's their biggest fear? Absolutely. Good job. Fear of moving down. They're going to do anything they can not to move down here. When they finally brought the officers from World War II, the Holocaust, to trial, what did every single one of them say when they got up on the stand? Every single one of them without an exception. No exception. What do you think they said? The officers that were here. When they were put on trial for killing millions of people.
It was somebody else's fault.
I was doing my job. I was just doing my job. They didn't think. I was just doing my job. So they'll do anything to stay here for the most part. Not everybody, but for the most part, okay? So these people down here are normally obey the laws without question and they conform, but they can make change. How do you think they make change, the masses? Voting's a good one. Okay, so these people also are most of the time a little confused with what's going on. They don't really know what the government's doing. They're pretty passive. Lots of people are usually jobless. But it's a little safer down here. It's a little safer down here because you don't have to have the responsibility of these two, right? You know, it's a lot easier. Most people fear success more than failure because when you success, people expect more out of you and you expect more out of yourself. So it's a little safer down here. So, with that said, our society, United States, was built on a bank system. I know it's right. You don't. Do what I say. That's how we were structured. It was also built on oppression and terrorism. It's what our country's based on. Almost all the corporations, organizations, schools, industries, anything you see is going to have this same structure because that's all we're taught. That's all we're taught. In here, who's up here at the jail?
The warden.
Warden, yeah. Who's here?
The CO.
Who's here?
Inmates.
Absolutely. And I was at General Motors, right? I was at Allison's. So who's up here? The CEO, the president of the, yeah, that was me, right? The floor supervisor. This was the union, right? So in order to get change, which we have done through our lifetime, right? And we've had some pretty major changes going on this way. Some of the major movements, civil rights movement, huge movement. A lot of people died for that cause, right? Usually when they make the move, it's going to be a huge movement. People are going to get hurt. What about the women's movement? You might not know. That was a huge movement too, and a lot of people died for the women's rights. What about the Native American movement? It's still going on. Wasn't it South or North Dakota they were going to put the pipeline through, and they're still fighting things like that? It wasn't that long ago that up in Seattle, Washington, Puget Sound, their land mass of water area up there, the government wanted the land, so the government moved the Native Americans and said, we want your reservation, we want the land, but we're going to give you the water. Like, they didn't like it, but that was the way it was, right? So then they made a very good living off of the fish, a fish industry. They went fishing and they brought the fish, the Native Americans did. Guess what the government did? Well, they didn't take the fish, but what they did tell them was, We gave you the water, we didn't give you the fish, so they taxed them for every fish they brought in. So they're still fighting that one. So in court, they're doing it legally, they're doing it legally. So my point is for this, all this causes trauma to our society. All of it does. When we make a change, it causes trauma. But this is how things are set up. Somebody at the top, somebody in the middle, and somebody at the bottom. There's another pyramid right here. What's that? What's that pyramid?
Door.
It's not a door, but what is it? It's your own homes, because that's all you know. That's all you've been taught. That's all you've been taught. So you're going to structure your own families the same way, right? For the most part, you're going to structure it the same way. The problem with this setup is, and it's done well for us, I'm not criticizing it at all, but one of the problems with this setup is it allows us to be blind to the abuse that goes on. It allows us to be blind and turn our head to all the abuses that go on, which is going to be the same way down here, because that's all you know. That's what you've been taught, right? And when you get upset here to this bigger picture, if you get upset, you can't go up here and go talk to him, right? That's not an option, right? If you get upset, can you just walk in the warden's office and say, hey, I'm really upset with this, I need to talk to you? That's not an option. Barely can go to an officer and talk. You have to make an appointment and go to the caseworker, right? Fill out a form and do all that. Absolutely. Same way in business. I couldn't go way up here and say, hey, this is silly, I'm not going to do it. I had to go to my supervisor, right? There's a hierarchy here, right? So what they call this is, because we can't go up, what they call this is sideways hostility. So we lash out at the person closest to us. Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Because that's the only avenue that we have, that we think we have, to lash out at. It's kind of interesting. I kind of like that. It made sense for me anyway. So that's a long story to get to where I'm trying to get. So if that's all you know, if that's all you're taught, and that's how you feel, bring that home to your own families. But what's really cool is now that we know something different, you've taken this class, we know there's a different way, breaking down those levels, getting everybody's input. Doesn't mean your children run the household, but talking to them, you know? It's perfectly okay. When I grew up, you just got punished. And there's a difference between punishment and discipline. Yeah, exactly. But now that we know this, we can get people's input. And it's perfectly okay to tell your child, you know, what you did was not right. What you did was wrong. I really, really dislike what you did. I still love you. Don't get that confused. I still love you, but this is wrong. And how do you think we should resolve it? Talk to them. Break those walls down. Don't be the person at the top just demanding orders and telling people what they have to do. Find out where they're coming from. Find out what's going on with them in their thought process. Does that make sense?
Yes, communication is key.
Communication is the key, and we're learning that more and more. We're learning that more and more. So I like to bring that in just because that's another little, like I said, another little piece of the puzzle that we can look at and say, oh, now I understand why I act the way I'm acting, why I do what I do. Doesn't mean I have to continue doing that, but I understand it now. Absolutely. Did you guys like that part of it? Did you like? Okay, cool. So, signs of a manipulator. Oh. That's okay, most of this is talk anyway. Will you do me a favor? Somebody erase that while I talk. Do you mind? Thank you. So we're going to get into signs of a manipulator. So, how many people in here, and you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, how many people in here think that they are in a relationship with a manipulator, a strong manipulator? How many people in here think they are manipulators? Thank you for being honest. Thank you. That's about what I get too. Well, signs of a manipulator are, you're always falling short of your partner's expectation. A manipulator will usually shift the blame and make the other person feel that they're at fault. but they do it in subtle ways, a lot more subtle than an abuser. Common comments from a manipulator are going to be things like, oh my gosh, we're going to have this interrogation again, really? We're going to talk about it again? And are you going to get all emotional? That's a manipulative comment, because what they're trying to do is shut it down before it even starts. Because they don't even want to talk about it. So they're trying to shut it down. How about you often feel guilty in your relationship and are always looking to repair the damage? How about if somebody says something like, oh my gosh, I spent all this money on this gift and look how you thank me. That's so horrible. How cruel can you be? No, that's not cruel at all. And it's cruel to say that. It's manipulative to say that. You buy somebody a gift, if they don't receive it the way you thought they would receive it, then don't buy them another gift. They're giving you a clear picture of what's going on here. It's not their fault that they're receiving it that way. That's just how they feel. How about, have you ever said or ever heard somebody tell you, you know what, I try all the time to explain, but you never listen, so I'm not going there anymore. Manipulation. They're trying to shut it down. They're trying to control. A manipulator will also try and shut you down and use open threats. What if you have an argument with your significant other, or even a best friend, you know, somebody who you're really close with, and all of a sudden they're like, I don't even know why I'm here anymore, it's not working. It kind of puts you on eggshells, doesn't it? You're kind of unsure, uncertain what's going on with that relationship. Is this the end? Have I gone too far? They're putting that guilt back on you. They're trying to make you doubt that relationship. Or what about if they just get angry and go, oh my God, this is stupid, I'm out of here, and they just walk out. I'm done. That's pretty manipulative, isn't it? To leave you there wondering, what does that mean? I'm done. I'm out of here. Are they ever coming back? Are they coming back to get their stuff? Are we done? Are we finished? What's going on? And you're always walking on eggshells. Sometimes your partner gives you affection, maybe gives you a kiss, and then half an hour later they give you a cold shoulder. You ask them something and you're like, what did I even do? I don't even know what I did. They switch on you. They do that on purpose because they want to be in control all the time. You do that all the time? Well, good. You guys will get some insight to this. That's manipulation because you want to be in control. Do you feel like you want, can I ask you about it? Do you feel like you want to be in control? Yeah. But do you want to live a life where you're always controlling others?
No.
No, yeah. So that's good that you acknowledge that. I give you credit for that. You feel confused in a relationship. You blame yourself for making your partner angry when you don't even really know what you've done. That's pretty cool manipulation. That's pretty ultimate manipulation. Manipulators, just like abusers, are never going to take the blame. They're never going to be blamed for anything. It's always someone else's fault. They say if you are unhappy in your relationship, at least 90% of the time, it's time to reevaluate your relationship. Then you can look and say, is my relationship healthy? And be objective. Only you know this. When I talk about this, think about past relationships, think about the relationship you're in, think about how you want your future relationships to be. Evaluate it very honestly. Are you enjoying positive esteem from friends and family, or are they looking at you with caution when you have somebody come into your life? Are your family relationships becoming tense every time your partner's name comes up? I don't know if that's ever happened to anybody. Are you doing things you wouldn't normally do since this person's entered your life? Are you doing drugs or drinking, avoiding friends or family altogether because this person doesn't want to be around them? Have all your goals or activities suddenly taken the back burner? Are you quitting school? Are you blowing off a good job interview? Are you not going to work altogether? Those are not good signs. That's manipulation, and that's not healthy. Those are all huge red flags of a not healthy relationship. Does your partner bring out the best or the worst traits in you? Only you can answer that. I told you a story, I think it was last week, about slapping that guy. I knew he only brought out the worst in me, and I wasn't going to bring that out in me. So I had to ask him to leave my life. Absolutely. Recognize your blindness to your partner's faults. Infatuation is defined as a foolish and usually extravagant passion or love or admiration. It consists of thinking people are in love when indeed it's just deep lust. It's not a bad thing, It's not a bad thing at all, but it truly can make you temporarily insane. You know, your palms get sweaty, your heart starts beating faster, you get butterflies in your stomach, you're anxious all the time. You do go through a physiological change, and it truly does mess with the brain. It can make you temporarily insane because you don't see that person's faults. That's the time you really do need to listen to other people. That's the time you need to listen to family and friends if they're going, you know, I'm not so sure this person's good for you. Instead of shutting them down, at least filter it through. At least filter it through, because they can see that person for who they are. You're blind to some of those issues. You're going to see them later, trust me. You're going to see them eventually. You are going to find a lot more than one person that you're committed to, that you're attracted to. If you think you're only going to find one person in this world that you're attracted to, you're crazy. And even when you're married, even when you're in love with someone, you're going to find other people who are attractive. And I know a short little story that I find was very inspiring for me. After work one night, a bunch of us went out to have a couple drinks. And the one guy, his wife couldn't join us because she had to work. So we were sitting there, and it wasn't very long. There was this attractive woman that was there, and this guy started dancing with her. And it wasn't too long at all. He comes over and he says, I'm out of here. And I'm like, well, what are you doing? We haven't been here long at all. He says, no. He says, I know what can happen. And I respect myself and my wife far too much. I'm going to go home and wait for my wife to get off work. My respect for him just skyrocketed because he knew that. And that's how you have to be. You have to be true to yourself, because we can all be anywhere and meet people that, you know, you're going to see people that you're going to be attracted to, you're going to have emotions about. I mean, you don't even know them. We can be sexually attracted to anybody. What's the term nowadays? You know, I want to hit that, whatever. I want to make love, go to bed. You're going to find all kinds of women who want to do that. You have to be true to who you are. You have to know your own respect. You have to be able to wake up and look in a mirror the next day and say, I really like who you are. That's on you, nobody else. The other thing, I've heard so many people say, you go into a relationship 50-50. I went to a wedding many, many years ago, and I will never forget it. This priest says to the bride and groom that are standing right in front of him, if you've come into this relationship today thinking that you're going to give 50-50, I want you to stand up and turn around and walk away, because it's never going to work. Because when you are committed to somebody, you have to be committed 100%. If we're in a relationship and I'm telling you I'm going to bring 50%, I'm already telling you up front, I got this other 50% I'm going to go play with. Does it make sense? Yeah, absolutely. And if I'm bringing 100% every day, my chances of screwing up are going to be much less, right? And if you really love someone, if you're really in love with someone, there's nothing in this world you're going to do to hurt her. We are going to do things. We're human. But consciously over and over, there's nothing you're going to do to really upset or hurt this person that you love. And if you're given 100%, you're going to work together. So remember that. Any relationship, any person you run into that you want to hook up with, if you cannot give 100%, then it's not the right person. It's not the right person. How about, do you find yourself apologizing or defending your partner's behavior all the time, or even who they are? How about, oh, that's okay, here's an excuse. Oh, that's okay, don't worry, I'll take care of that. She went through a horrible relationship, I'm helping her out. No, no, no. If she went through a horrible relationship, or you went through a horrible relationship, you need to deal with that before you get into another relationship. Nobody can fix things for you. Nobody can heal your life. We can't even heal our own lives. How do we expect to walk in and heal somebody else's life? Don't get into another relationship until you resolve some things in your own life. Your plans are constantly overturned in their favor. You're going to the movies to see one movie, and by the time dinner's finished, you're going to a whole different movie on the other side of town. Now that might happen once in a while. Remember, this is a manipulation. This is all the time they want to be in control. All the time. How about you've got plans with friends at 7, but your partner doesn't start getting ready till like 6:50, so you got to call everybody and tell them you're going to be late and blah, blah, blah. They know exactly what they're doing. They want to be in control. They purposely started getting ready late because they want to be the ones that's going to pull the strings and control everything that's going on. It's not something that just happened. It's something that was planned, because it's always going to be about the manipulator, nobody else. Remember that manipulation is when your partner gets you to do something you really wished you hadn't done. I really wished I hadn't done that. How many people have been in here, they've done something, and the minute they did it, they're like, oh, I wished I hadn't done that. Yeah, absolutely. Big time manipulation. A manipulator likes to get you out of that comfort zone so that they can pull all those strings. They can have one over on you at all times. How about beware of backhanded compliments? How about things like, oh my gosh, it's a good thing you're so attractive. We laugh and we hear that, but what's it really telling that person? Absolutely. That's all you got going. It really, what we're saying is that you're stupid. You're very stupid and incompetent, and that's all you've got is your looks. Or it's a good thing you're with me. It's a good thing you're with me. I'll take care of you. What are you really telling this person? Yeah, nobody else would want you, or nobody else would put up with you. And at first, these seem funny and they're kind of cute, and we laugh about them. But then we start to see no one else would love us, because we start buying into that, and we start losing our positive attributes that we had about ourselves. And if you had few to begin with, they're diminishing all of them. It fosters total dependence on the other person and their love. And over time, it's going to destroy all of your confidence. And you're going to start thinking, maybe I'm not better for any, maybe I'm unworthy of any better treatment. Maybe that is the case. It is a learned behavior, just like abusive behavior. No one is born with it. But manipulation is more of a form of survival from childhood. Manipulation is kind of taught from a survival mode. When you're young, you have to get along, you have to survive, so you're going to manipulate to get there. So therefore, they say changing the behavior of a manipulator is even harder than of an abusive or violent person. But you can still do it. You just have to dig deeper to find out when you started manipulating and why. And you have, for the manipulators in the room, you have to ask yourself every time you make a choice, am I really doing this for the good of my significant other or friends, or am I doing this because I want my way, because I want to control? You have to consciously ask yourself that. Am I doing this because I want control? The bottom line is, they say if you know you're with a manipulator, your time's probably better spent to develop strategies to protect yourself, make a choice to move on. But the most important thing, the one thing I don't want you to forget, and it took me a long time to figure this one out, guys. This is the key. What you have to figure out is, why do I draw that person into my life? Why don't I draw a different type of person into my life? Why do I only draw drama queens into my life? Why do I only draw manipulators into my life? Why do I only draw weak people into my life? I had to ask myself, why do I only draw older, abusive alcoholics into my life? That's the only man I would date. You know, it would scare the heck out of me if I had a nice young man walk up to me and want to date me. I would find ways of ruining that because I didn't think I deserved it. I didn't think I deserved it. So I had to dig deep and figure out what happened to me. What was my cause for only drawing that type of person into my life? That's what you need to do. You need to write and figure out why. Why am I drawing this? Because they're not just coming into your life. You're bringing them into your life. They're not going to get in unless you allow them to get in. So you got to figure that out. And they say that people who attract manipulators usually lack that self-worth, because they're going to go with anybody, what I talked about a little bit earlier. And they tend to be people pleasers. So a manipulator is it's going to be easy for a manipulator to take control of them, right? Because they want to be a pleaser. They want to please people. And they trust to a point of ignorance. I'll trust anybody because I want to belong. Whatever you say, I'll belong. I did that myself. I mean, how many people in here, not just me, but how many people in here were like me with all three of my abuses? You get out of one relationship because you know it's not healthy, you're fighting all the time, and you go out and it's not very long at all, you're in another relationship with the exact same type of person. Yeah, you have to ask yourself why. That's what I had to do too. Why am I always picking these people? I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have to figure out what happened to make you feel like you don't deserve anything better than that. Because you do. What happened down the road that made you lose that self-respect and figure you can let people walk on you? Because you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Please always keep a support system, no matter who it is, because a manipulator, like an abuser, they're going to try and get you away. They're going to try to get you away from everybody you know so they can control you. Please keep one person as a support person that you can talk to. Also, when you're trying to deal with some of your past, when you're looking at things, please don't use the word should have. I think I've mentioned this once before. I'm going to do it again. I had a counselor one time that said, Lucia, stop. Every other word out of your mouth is I should have. I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done this growing up. He's like, quit saying that. Every time you say should have, it's the same thing as hitting yourself in the head going, I'm so stupid, I'm so stupid, and you're going to believe it. And then you're going to make unhealthy choices even more because you don't trust your own self. So please don't use should haves. Take them out. Take them out. Take them out of your vocabulary. Are there any questions on anything today? Good job. Good input, guys, too. In your notebook, in your workbook there, you've got a work of violence cost sheet. You've got a couple of work pages if you do those for this week's homework. I appreciate it. Is there any questions about anything? Please remember where we're going to start next week. Help me remember where we're going to start, okay? Before we leave, remember, be kind to yourself. We are our own worst abusers. Before you leave, if you can stack the chairs